Today, I'm going to be going over my 2022 MLB predictions for awards, standings, and playoffs. Starting off with the AL Central, and number 5, I'm going to give it to the Kansas City Royals, who may be a little disappointing to some of you guys. I think they could be a solid team this year. Not too solid, but like about 70-something wins. They're still in a rebuild phase, so I don't see them getting much higher than this. And number 4, we have the Cleveland Guardians. They're in sell mode right now. They might even trade Jose Ramirez, but they got a solid team. They still have Shane Bieber and Cal Quantrill and some other solid pitching arms, but I don't see them getting higher than number 4. And coming in number 3 in the AL Central, I'll give it to the Minnesota Twins, who actually had a pretty decent offseason, getting Sonny Gray, getting rid of Josh Donaldson's contract, and getting Isaiah Kinner-Falefa, and signing Carlos Correa, which was one of the biggest signings in the offseason. I don't think I see the Twins getting too much higher than this. Maybe 2 would be fair, but they finished in 5th last season, so let's remember that. But I'd say the Minnesota Twins could be the number 3 team, because the number 1 team is going to be the Chicago White Sox, followed by the Detroit Tigers at number 2. So the Tigers, they had a good offseason too. They got Javier Baez and they got Rodriguez, but I think they have a better core than the Twins, so I see the Tigers going up ahead of them. And the Chicago White Sox, they have a really good rotation. Even though they lost Carlos Rodon, they still have Lance Lynn as their ace, and their lineup is still stacked. Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, Jose Abreu. Their lineup is just completely stacked, so I have the Chicago White Sox winning the AL Central. Moving on to the AL West, this was a pretty hard division to rank, as a lot of these are, but at number 5, I'm going to have the Oakland Athletics, who just took a big step down. Since they're in sell mode, they traded Matt Olson, they traded Matt Chapman, they traded Chris Bassett. They're probably going to trade Frankie Montez. I have the Oakland Athletics going down to the number 5 spot. I don't see them getting much better. In fact, they got worse. In the number 4 spot, I have the Los Angeles Angels, who haven't done too much in the offseason. Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, it's 2 of the best players in the MLB, so I have them in the number 4 spot, but besides Noah Syndergaard, they didn't do anything crazy to help out their team. Number 3, I have the Texas Rangers, because they had a really big offseason, the biggest offseason in 2022. They got Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray. Their team was not very good at all last season. I think they got some good core pieces. Now they just need to work on a little more depth, and I think they could be a good team this year. Coming in at number 1, we have the Houston Astros, followed by the number 2 at Seattle Mariners. So even though the Houston Astros cheated, they're still a really good team, and they proved that last year. They have a good rotation with Verlander, Lance McCullers Jr., Framber Valdez, just to name a few. Their lineup's still stacked even without Carlos Correa, with Bregman, Altuve, Yuli Gurriel had a good season last year, Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, the list goes on. Houston Astros are the number 1 team in the AL West. In the number 2 spot, the Seattle Mariners. They had a pretty good offseason too. They got Robbie Ray, the 2021 Cy Young winner. They traded for Jesse Winker and Suarez. So I have the Seattle Mariners coming in the number 2. They're a really good team going into 2022. Moving on to the hardest division in the MLB, the AL East. At number 5, this one's obvious, the Baltimore Orioles. They're not a good team. They did, however, offer Carlos Correa a 10-year, $300 million contract, which is pretty crazy. And of course he rejected because he didn't want to go to Baltimore. Who wants to play there? Orioles are the number 5 team. There's no way they get any better than this. Number 4 team might surprise some of you guys, but I'm going to go with the New York Yankees. They didn't do anything crazy in the offseason. They traded for Josh Donaldson, and they're taking on his contract, which freed up money for the Twins, so the Twins were able to sign Carlos Correa. The Yankees were trying to go for it too. So the Yankees, they could get higher than this, but I see the Yankees coming in number 4, because the number 3 team is the Boston Red Sox, who they just signed Trevor Story. The Boston Red Sox are a pretty good team. They could get some more pitching depth for sure. They got a good lineup. They got Xander Bogaerts and Trevor Story in the infield, Rafael Devers. They have a really solid team still. But coming in at the number 1 spot, we got the Toronto Blue Jays, followed by the Tampa Bay Rays. Now the Toronto Blue Jays had a really good offseason. Even though they lost MVP candidate and Cy Young winner Robbie Ray and Marcus Semien, they were still able to have a very successful offseason, signing Kevin Gausman and trading for Matt Chapman. So I have them winning the AL East. And in number 2, we have the Tampa Bay Rays, who were apparently in on Freddie Freeman. They didn't end up getting him, but the Tampa Bay Rays are still a good team. They didn't do much in the offseason. They got Corey Kluber. They did extend Wander Franco. They didn't do enough to put them ahead of the Blue Jays, in my opinion. Now it's time for the AL awards. So we'll start off with the Rookie of the Year, Adley Rutschman of the Baltimore Orioles. You're going to win something this year, and that's going to be Rookie of the Year. He's not in the MLB yet, but I could see him getting called up this year. He's got a really good glove. He's got a pretty solid bat. So I have Adley Rutschman winning AL Rookie of the Year this year. I'm going to go over top 3 Cy Young predictions. So coming in number 3, I'm going to give this to Lance McCullers Jr., who I think could actually have a breakout season, like even better than last year. Number 2, we're going to give it to the Oakland Athletics, Frankie Montez. He had a really good season last year in 2021, and I expect him to do even better this year. But coming in number 1 for the AL Cy Young in 2022, Kevin Gausman of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now the Jays just signed him in the offseason, and he was supposed supposed to replace Robbie Ray, and I see him having a better season than Robbie Ray. So Kevin Gausman wins AL Cy Young in 2022. For the AL MVP predictions, I gotta give an honorable mention to Jose Ramirez, who I think is the most underrated player in the MLB. Coming in number 3, we got Mike Trout. Kind of a forgotten about player. Now, last season he got injured early on and he missed the rest of the year. But I think Mike Trout could have a really good season in 2022. Last season, in just 117 at-bats, he had 8 home runs, a .333 batting average, an OPS of 1090, and a WAR of 2.1. Coming in at number 2 for MVP, we got last year's MVP winner, Shohei Ohtani, who had an insane season last year. We've never seen any player that good in so long. 46 home runs, 257 batting average, an OPS of 965, and 100 RBIs. But that's not all. What? He didn't just hit well, he pitched well too. Last season, in 130.1 innings pitched, 3.18 ERA, whip of 1.09. You just don't see a player pitch that good and hit that good at the same time. It's insane. Ohtani is coming in at only number 2 though, because coming in number 1, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Last season, insane season. Second in MVP voting, I think he wins it this year. He led the league in home runs with 48, in 604 at-bats, 311 batting average, OPS above 1,000. I think he's going to even have a better season this year. He's lost 20 pounds apparently too. Moving on to the NL, we're gonna start off with the NL Central. Coming in number 5, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're a terrible team, maybe the worst team in all of baseball. They did nothing this offseason pretty much. They're coming in at number 5. They do have Brian Hayes, who I think is gonna actually have a breakout season this year, but I don't see much else happening. And coming at number 4, we got the Cincinnati Reds, who are just completely tanking. They're in full sell mode. Like, they were probably a few pieces away from potentially contending for the playoffs. They lost Nick Castellanos, Jesse Wink, Sonny Gray, Suarez, and they haven't really got much back in return. Cincinnati Reds are definitely the number 4 team. Coming in number 3 are the Chicago Cubs. Now, they lost Bryant, they lost Rizzo, they lost Baez last trade deadline, but the Cubs are actually starting to rebuild kind of nicely. They signed Marcus Stroman, they signed Clint Frazier, and they still have a solid team with Ian Happ, Wilson Contreras, and number 1 in the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers. Their pitching rotation is just super stacked. You got Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, who won the Cy Young last year, Freddie Peralta. They have an absolutely disgusting 1 through 3 in their pitching rotation. Their lineup's pretty solid too, so I have them winning the NL Central, followed by the St. Louis Cardinals. Have a really good lineup in Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt. Now we're going to move on to the NL West. Coming at number 5, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks, who aren't a very good team. They have Ketel Marte, which is good, and they have some good prospects who could come up eventually, but I don't see them being a very good team in 2022. I'm sorry, Diamondbacks fans. And coming at number 4, we actually have the Colorado Rockies. They did lose Trevor Story, and they traded Nolan Arenado $51 million for some reason, and then they signed Chris Bryant to a big contract, so that doesn't really make sense. But they have Chris Bryant, who's good. They have Randall Grichuk, who's good, and his numbers are probably going to accelerate in Coors Field. Pitching, they have Germán Marquez. You know, they're not the best team, but they do have some guys like Brandon Rogers, who could have solid seasons. Colorado Rockies coming at number 4 in the NL West. And coming at number 3, we have the San Diego Padres, who were a bit of a disappointment last year. Blake Snell was a bit of a disappointment, but I could see them bouncing back. Their rotation's not too bad. Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, I think, will have a better season this year. Joe Musgrove, who had a good season last year. And their lineup, they got guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Ha-Seong Kim maybe will have a better season this year. I have the Padres coming at number 3 in the NL West. Coming in at number 1 in the NL West is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are in favor by a lot of people to win the World Series. Their pitching rotation lineup is just amazing. They added Freddie Freeman in this offseason. They lost Corey Seager. They lost Max Scherzer. But the Dodgers have so much depth. It's insane. So I have the Dodgers winning the NL West, followed by the Giants, who won the NL West last year by like 1 game, I'm pretty sure. They have a good team too. They lost Kevin Gausman to the Blue Jays, but they did gain Carlos Rodon, so I have the Giants coming in at number 2. Moving on to the NL East, at number 5 spot, we got the Washington Nationals, who didn't really do much in the offseason. They lost Scherzer, they lost Trey Turner last year. They have Juan Soto. That's pretty much it. I don't see the Nationals having too good of a season in 2022. Coming at number 4, team that could potentially be a bit better than this, Miami Marlins. I think they could actually have a better season than last year, because their pitching rotation is actually better than you might think. They got Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, and Sixto Sanchez. And their lineup has improved too. They signed Garcia in the offseason and Jorge Soler, but I don't see them getting too much higher than this. Coming in the number 3 spot, we got the Philadelphia Phillies for the second year year in a row. They have a good team. Bryce Harper won MVP last year, who I'm sure will have a good season. JT Realmuto. They did add Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber, which I think is huge offensively, but defensively, the team is probably going to struggle. Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber aren't exactly known for their gloves. They still are missing a few pieces. They probably could use a better shortstop and more pitching help, and they have some good pitchers too, like Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, but I don't see the Philadelphia Phillies doing much better than this. Because coming in at the number 1 spot in the NL East is the Atlanta Braves. Actually had a pretty good offseason. They did lose Freddie Freeman, but they traded for Matt Olson, and they got him for a pretty cheap contract too. They got Kenley Jansen. The Atlanta Braves are the number 1 team in the NL East, followed by the New York Mets, who had a pretty good offseason too. Max Scherzer, which is completely huge. Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, and Starling Marte, which is going to help out their lineup quite a bit. I have the Mets coming second in the NL East. Now we're going to move on to the NL Awards. Winning Rookie of the Year, I have Pirates infielder O'Neal Cruz, who I think is going to have a good season this year. And for Cy Young, 2 honorable mentions. Logan Webb, who I think could have a really good breakout season this year, and also Freddie Peralta. So coming in at number 3 for the Cy Young, Corbin Burnes, who last season, in 160 innings pitched, he had a 2.43 ERA and a .94 whip, which is pretty crazy. So Corbin Burnes is going to be the number 3 for the Cy Young this year. Coming in number 2, we have Max Scherzer. Insane season last year. 179.1 innings pitched, 2.46 ERA, .86 whip. Insane. But I have Max Scherzer only coming in number 2 because at number 1, we have the best pitcher in baseball, Jacob Degrom. He was injured last year. If he was healthy last year, I'm sure he would have won. Just 92 innings pitched last year, a 1.08 ERA, and a .55 whip, which is just absurd. Probably one of the best starts by any Major League Baseball pitcher in history. So if Jacob Degrom can stay healthy this year, I definitely see him winning the Cy Young. Moving on to the NL MVP predictions. Coming in at number 3, Trey Turner, one of the most underrated players in 2021. He stole 32 bases, 28 home runs, a 911 OPS, a batting average of .328, WAR of 8.1, which is just insane. And coming in at number 2 for MVP, Juan Soto. Last year, 29 home runs, 999 OPS, a batting average of .313, and a 7.1 WAR. I think not being in a very good lineup is going to hurt him a bit, but Juan Soto, I definitely see having a good season in 2022. But coming in number 1 for MVP, we have Ronald Lacuna Jr., who I think would have won it last season, but he got injured halfway through the season. But last season, in just 297 at-bats, he had 24 home runs, 990 OPS, 283 batting average, and a 4.7 WAR. I have no doubt that Ronald Lacuna Jr. will be able to repeat that, stay healthy, and win the MVP this season in 2022. It's time to move on to the playoffs. So now there are 6 teams from each league who will make the playoffs. So coming in number 1 for the AL, we got the Houston Astros. Number 2, we got the Toronto Blue Jays. 3, the Chicago White Sox. Tampa Bay 4. 5, the Seattle Mariners. And number 6, we have the Boston Red Sox. Yes, that's right. I'm predicting the New York Yankees to miss the playoffs this year. For the NL, coming in at number 6, we got the St. Louis Cardinals. 5, the New York Mets. 4, the San Francisco Giants. 3, the Milwaukee Brewers. 2, the Atlanta Braves. And finally, at number 1, the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the playoffs, it's going to work like this. The number 1 and the number 2 team both have byes, just like the NFL. The number 3 team is going to play the number 6 team, and the number 4 team is going to play the number 5 team. Starting off for the AL, Chicago White Sox will be playing the Boston Red Sox. Winning that series, I'm going to go with the White Sox just because they have a better lineup than the Red Sox. They're both pretty good, but at the end of the day, the White Sox have more pitching depth, so I have the White Sox beating the Red Sox. In the other series in the American League, we got the Mariners and the Rays, and I'm actually going to go with the upset here. The Mariners are going to win this one. I think they got a better lineup than the Rays now. I see the Mariners beating the Rays. NL, we got the Brewers and the Cardinals. I have the Brewers winning this one. The Cardinals have a better lineup than the Brewers, but the Brewers have a way more pitching depth in Corbin Burnes, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff. So I have the Brewers winning that. And for the Giants and the Mets, I got another upset here. I got the Mets winning this. Scherzer and Degrom, I see them winning the first 2 games. I say the Mets could win that series. So now on to the next round of the playoffs, and the teams who had a bye in the previous round, they're back to playing again. The Houston Astros will play the Mariners, and I have the Astros moving on because they have a better lineup and they have better pitching. The Jays and the White Sox playing, and I'm going to go with the Jays on this one. The Jays now have better pitching rotation. The Jays have the best, if not one of the best lineups in all of baseball. To the NL, the Dodgers and the Mets. Can't give this one to the Mets, unfortunately. The Dodgers win this. They got maybe one of the best lineups of all time in baseball. Potentially better than the Blue Jays. I think the Dodgers, they just outpower the Mets. In the other game, Braves Brewers. I'm going to go with the Brewers because they got a better rotation. 2 teams left in the AL. We got the Astros and we got the Blue Jays. This is going to be a tough series, but I have the Blue Jays winning this in 7 games. Blue Jays had a crazy offseason. They're just getting going with all their young players. So I have the Jays moving on to the World Series. Dodgers and the Brewers. Even though the Brewers have a really good rotation, I'm going to have to give this to the Dodgers because the Dodgers just have an insane lineup, insane pitching. They're also just going to outpower the Brewers. So in the 2022 World Series, we got the Blue Jays and the Dodgers winning World Series in 2022 in 7 games is the Toronto Blue Jays. Yes, you heard it here first. I'm predicting the Blue Jays to win the 2022 World Series. Their lineup is insane. Their rotation is also good, just like the Dodgers. But the Blue Jays, this is their year, I feel like. Look at how much depth is on their team. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.